Hello friends, let us now learn some important points about the speed of calcium tungstate intensifying screens. So there are several factors which determine how slow or fast a calcium tungstate intensifying screen could be. So factors affecting the speed of calcium tungstate intensifying screen include the thickness of the phosphor layer, size of the phosphor crystal, presence or absence of light absorbing dye in the phosphor layer, and phosphor conversion efficiency. Of course, the faster screen will allow lower X-ray exposure to the patient. Faster screen allows lower X-ray exposure to the patient, but a price for this faster screen must be paid. The speed of the calcium tungstate screens and its ability to record details are in reciprocal relationship. Before that, the disadvantage of the faster screen is it causes less radiological detail. The speed of the calcium tungstate screen and the ability to record detail are in reciprocal relationship. That is, higher or faster speed phosphors will result in lesser detail, which is a major disadvantage. This statement is also true for new phosphors, new screen phosphors. So these screen phosphors can be divided into three types: fast, medium and slow. Slow screen phosphors are detailed phosphors, whereas medium screen phosphors are called par speed phosphors, whereas fast phosphor screens are also available. So the intensification factor of a slow phosphor screen is 25, intensification factor of medium phosphor screen is 50, and intensification factor of fast phosphor screen is 100. So the first important thing is thickness of the phosphor layer. So first, thicker the phosphor layer. So thickness of the phosphor layer. So in the thickness of the phosphor layer, thicker the phosphor layer will result in faster screen, because thick phosphor layer will absorb more X-ray photons than a thin phosphor layer, resulting in faster screens. Thicker screens will be faster, but this will cause a decrease in image clarity recorded on the film. So this will decrease the clarity of image recorded on the film. So this decrease in clarity of film is mainly caused due to the diffusion of the light in the phosphor layer. So though there is more X-ray photons are absorbed, because of the diffusion layer there is decreased clarity of the image. So for this, let us draw a diagram which tells us better. So this is the intensifying screens, which are thicker intensifying screens. This is the film. So if a thick phosphor is employed, an X-ray beam photon is absorbed in the thick phosphor at some distance from the film. So it is absorbed by this thick phosphor at some distance from the screen, from the film, at some distance from the film. Now the light photons are generated in the calcium phosphate crystals by the absorption of this X-ray photon. So these light photons which are generated are emitted in all the directions. Not all the light photons will reach the film, but that which does will expose an area of the film which is much larger than the size of the calcium tungstate crystal which emitted the light. So because of the diffusion, the exposed film, the area of the exposed film is larger when compared to the size of calcium tungstate crystal. So this intensifying screen has thicker phosphor layer. So this phosphor layer absorbs the X-ray photons in the superficial part of the phosphor layer, and this X-ray photons which are absorbed will emit light, and this light is emitted in all the directions. So this light will expose an area on the film which is greater than the area of the actual calcium tungstate crystal, or size of the actual calcium tungstate crystal that is emitting the light. In addition, some light scattering also takes place in the screen, which results in further increase in area of illumination. This resultant light diffusion obviously results in less sharp borders. So for that, let us consider a film screen combination, and a LED block is placed over the film screen combination. So if an X-ray beam is directed onto a film screen combination that has a thick LED block covering half of the film, one would expect that this half of the film is exposed, whereas the half of the film with LED block is completely unexposed, and there is a sharp and there will be a sharp boundary which is separating the exposed and unexposed area. So this is the film blackening, and this and there is sharp boundary or sharp edge is present, or sharp line is present between the exposed and unexposed areas. So this LED block is covering half of the film. So this is unexposed, whereas this film screen combination is exposed, and there is a sharp edge between the exposed and unexposed areas. But when the screen is used, that is, in reality, when a screen is used, the there is some amount of film blackening, and here there is gradual change. The border is less sharp, and actually there is a gradual change from exposed and unexposed regions. So this gradual change is because of the diffusion. So if the film is sandwiched between the intensifying screens, however, the border is less sharp because of the light which is diffusing into the area under the LED block, and this causes exposure of the film in an area that actually receives no light exposure. So this light is diffused under the edge of the block, and the final result will be production of more gradual change in density, which is unlike the ideal transition or abrupt transition from black to unexposed film. So the border is less sharp because some light diffuses into the area under the edge of the block. So there is gradual change in density of the film. Okay. So if you compare a thin screen with a thick screen, the thin screen, because the screen is very thin, whereas this is the thicker screen, this thin screen is nearer to the X-ray film, and when the X-ray beam penetrates the or activates the phosphors in the thin screen, that is the calcium tungstate crystal, so this produces light photons, and the light generated here in the thin screen causes less light diffusion because light photons are produced closer to the film. Whereas if you see, a thicker screen will produce light in all the directions, and as a result this thicker screen will expose the thicker screen. In the thicker screen, the X-ray film is larger portion of X-ray film is exposed when compared to the size of calcium tungstate phosphor. So thin screens have less light diffusion than the thicker one because light photons produced are closer to the film. Another way to decrease the light diffusion is to incorporate a substance that absorbs this light. Before that, the thin screens will increase the clarity of the image, whereas in thicker screens, because more light diffuses, because light photons are far away from the screen, and this decreases the clarity of the image, or there is unsharpness of image. One more important thing is there is a substance. One more way to decrease light diffusion is to incorporate a substance that absorbs the light in the screen. This substance is an yellow dye. So the question of which color is most effective has not been resolved, but this yellow dye is found to absorb more light photons. Actually, the light photons which emerge from the crystal immediately adjacent to the film, as in short thin films, they travel shorter distance before leaving the phosphor, whereas scattered photons travel longer distances in the phosphor layer. Thus, the yellow dye uh, better absorbs the scattered light photons when compared to the normal photons. So this dye will decrease the speed of screen. So this is the thicker screen, this is the X-ray film. These are the calcium tungstate. So when X-ray beam projected onto the phosphors, these produces the light photons. So the calcium tungstate, which is nearer to the film, so light travels a shorter distance before leaving the phosphor layer. Whereas the calcium tungstate crystal, which is farther from the screen, it has to, here more of the light is travels for a longer distance, and it also exposes a larger area on the X-ray film. So calcium tungstate far from the screen will produces light photons which are useful, and it also produces scattered photons. These scattered photons will travel some distance in the thick screen, and these scattered photons are absorbed by the yellow dye. So the main disadvantage of this yellow dye is this yellow dye will decrease the speed of the screen, whereas the advantage of the yellow dyes is it produces greater detailed images, or it causes increased clarity of image. Then the next property of the calcium tungstate screens is resolving power. The maximum number of lines pairs per millimeter that can be resolved by the screen film system is called the resolving power. So resolving power is the maximum number of line pairs per millimeter resolved by the screen film system. So a line pair meaning there is a line and there is a space. For example, one line pair per mm means there are two lines, and those two lines are separated by two spaces per millimeter. So each line is around 1/4 mm width, and each space is around 1/4 mm wide, thus making each line pair is half millimeter wide. So the X-ray film, which is able to record up to 100 line pairs per mm, but the slowest screens can record only a little over 10 line pairs per mm. So resolving power is the maximum number of line pairs per millimeter that can be resolved by the screen film system. More the line pairs, more is the resolving power. So X-ray film can record better line pairs than the slowest screens. So then screen film contact. Then a cassette is seen. So a cassette in which intensifying screens are mounted provide a light tight container to the film. So it also serves to hold the film in tight contact with the X-ray film. So this cassette will provide light tight container for the film, and it also serves to hold the film in tight contact with the screens over the entire surface. So with good film screen combination, the contact that so with a good film screen combination, a dot of light which is produced in the screen will be transferred or recordable as a comparable dot on the X-ray film. If the contact is poor, the light dot in the screen will diffuse before it reaches the film, so the radiological image becomes unsharp. There is a simple way to test this film screen contact. So a piece of wire screen is placed on a cassette. The radiograph of this wire screen is made. So a piece of wire is placed and a radiograph of this wire screen is made. So this wires is actually made up of either iron or brass or copper, but this wire screen is not made up of aluminum or plastic, because this aluminum and plastic do not absorb the enough X-rays. So the sharpness of the image of the wire in all regions of the film is compared, and any areas of poor film screen contact becomes obvious because the image of the wire appears fuzzy. So this is exposed. So this wire which is present in the cassette and the film screen contact, this is exposed. So if the wire is sharp, there is good film screen contact, whereas if the wire is fuzzy or blurred, this will tell us that there is poor film screen contact. The wire screen should be a heavier wire than that used for ordinary window screen. It is better to mount this test wire between the pieces of plastic or cardboard or composition board. If cassette is handled roughly, this will result in poor film screen contact. Then eventually the cassette will also wear out with routine use. The next important thing is cleaning. The intensifying screens should be kept clean. So any foreign material on the screen such as paper or blood will produce light photons, and this will produce an area of underexposure on the film corresponding to the size and shape of the soiled area. So cleaning, so any foreign material like paper or blood will block the light photons, resulting in underexposure of the film. So cleaning will eliminate the hot spots on the screen. So cleaning eliminates the hot spots on the screen. So these hot spots are the high points which are the major sources of excessive wear. The main cause of screen failure is mechanical attrition. So under normal conditions of radiation use, the X-ray photons will not damage the screens. These screens are best cleaned with a solution containing anti-static compound and a detergent. The solution is applied gently, never rub vigorously, and it is applied gently with a soft lint-free cloth. The cassette should never be closed after cleaning until the cassette is absolutely dry. Thank you.